All right, let's jump right in. You hear about the cloud constantly, right? Serverless, everything as a service, it's everywhere. And you'd think an old school classic like Windows Server would be, I don't know, collecting dust somewhere. But here's the thing, and this is the crazy part, it's actually more important than it's ever been. So we're going to dig into why this absolute workhorse isn't just sticking around, it's literally running the show for most modern businesses.
And that's the big question, isn't it? I mean, you've got these massive cloud platforms like Amazon Web Services and Microsoft Azure that can do pretty much anything. So why on earth would a company still bother with a server humming away in their own office? Well, the answer is pretty fascinating, actually. It tells you a whole lot about how businesses really operate when you pull back the curtain. So, to really get why it's so enduring, we've got to go back to basics and understand what Windows Server actually does. We're not talking about flashy, newfangled features here. Nope. We're talking about the core, must-have jobs that, keep a company's entire network from falling apart. Let's break down its three main gigs. Okay, first up, and this is the big one, Active Directory. The easiest way to think about it, it's the digital bouncer for your entire company. You know the guy at the door with the clipboard? When you sit down and log into your computer in the morning, that's Active Directory checking your name off the list and saying, yep, you're good, go on in. Its job number one is making sure only the right people get past the velvet rope. Then you've got its role as the central librarian. I mean, every company has shared files, right? Those S drives or P drives you see on your work computer. And you gotta have a system for managing who can use which printer. Well, that's Windows Server doing its thing in the background. It's kind of the unsung hero, just quietly making sure everyone can get to the files they need and print stuff without a headache. So think about it this way. If Active Directory is the guest list, the domain controller is the one who enforces all the house rules. It's the security guard on patrol, making sure that, say, an intern can't just wander into the company's financial records. Or it's the thing that makes sure your computer locks itself after you've been away for 5 minutes. It's enforcing all those company-wide security policies to keep everything buttoned up and consistent. So let's just recap real quick. You've got user authentication, who are you? You've got shared resource management, what can you access? And security policy enforcement, what are the rules? These three things, they're the absolute bedrock of any serious business network. And for, decades now, Windows Server has been the king of the hill for all of it. But the way we use it today, that's a whole different story.
And that brings us to the real game changer, the technology that basically gave Windows Server superpowers, virtualization. Seriously, this one concept completely flipped the entire server world on its head. It made everything more powerful, way more flexible, and a heck of a lot cheaper.
See, back in the day, if you needed a server to do a job, you had to buy a big, expensive metal box, one box for your files, another box for security, another one for something else. It was a whole room full of them. But with virtualization, you can take one powerful physical server and slice it up into a bunch of smaller virtual servers. Each one thinks it's its own machine. The benefits are just massive. You save a fortune on hardware. You can spin up a new server in minutes, and this is a big one we're about to get to, it makes doing updates way, way safer. And yeah, that safety thing, that leads us to maybe the single greatest feature of virtualization. It's like a secret weapon that every IT pro adores. I want you to imagine having a real-life undo button, but for your entire server. Like you make a huge, catastrophic mistake, and you can just hit undo and go back in time. Well, that's a real thing. It's called a snapshot. And the way it works is just so simple, it's beautiful. So let's say you've got to install a really important security update, but you're kind of nervous it might break everything, right? So before you touch anything, you take a snapshot. Bam! It's a perfect freeze frame of your server at that exact moment in time. Then you install the update. And if the whole thing goes up in flames, no sweat. You just click one button, roll back to that snapshot, and it's like that whole disaster just never happened. Pew. Okay, so this is where the pieces of the puzzle really start to fit together. Just because you're using virtualization doesn't mean you're stuck with servers only in your own office. Actually, it's the exact opposite. Virtualization is the key that unlocks the door to the cloud. It's what lets your local servers talk to the cloud, creating what we call a hybrid environment. And a hybrid setup really is the best of both worlds. It means a business can keep all its super important, sensitive stuff running locally on a virtual Windows server, where they have total control and speed, but at the same time, they can tap into all the incredible power of the cloud for other things. Like using Microsoft 365 for email, or using Azure for managing user accounts. And here's a perfect real-world example of how that works. A company might have its local Windows server acting as that bouncer for everyone in the office. But at the same time, it's constantly syncing all those user accounts up with Azure AD, which is basically the cloud version of Active Directory. And that syncing, that's the magic right there. It means an employee has just one username and password for everything, for logging into their computer at their desk and for accessing all their cloud apps.
Okay, let's tie this all together. Why does any of this matter to you? I mean, maybe you're a student, maybe you're already in IT, maybe you're on a business. Here's why. Because what we've just talked about is the absolute foundation of how almost every modern company's IT is built. So, let's just boil it down to the key takeaways. Windows Server does the critical, gotta-have-it jobs. Virtualization makes running it cheap, fast, and safe. And when you put those two together, you get the bridge that connects you to the powerful hybrid cloud world that, frankly, runs most businesses today. So whether you're studying for a cert, messing around in a home lab, or planning a real network for a real job, you have to know this stuff. It's essential.
And that kind of leaves us with one final question to think about. If you were handed a blank check to start a new business tomorrow, what would you do? Would you go all in on the cloud? Would you stick with a traditional server in the office? Or would you build one of these powerful, flexible hybrid setups? The cool part is, now you actually know enough to make a really smart choice.